Good morning again. Good to see everybody. Here we are, it's delightfully sunny today here in Maine, and we're continuing to contemplate the Heart Sutra. And today I want to approach it from the perspective of why are we doing this and how can we use the contemplations or the commentary that we've been studying. So first of all, I want to remind everyone that the Heart Sutra isn't like a text or a prayer. It's more a compendium. It's a verbal reminder of the core Buddhist teachings in a framework, and it references all the teachings of the path with key points. So what it's referencing is hundreds of texts and years of your ongoing studies. And in particular, when we, in the last even more than a month, have been looking at the verse, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, etc., the teachings on emptiness is something you might study in a university setting. We call it a Shedra, philosophy studies, for 10 years. And each year a different view would be presented, and that view would lead to a gradual clarification. So I just want to say that to address any frustration you might be feeling. We're taking topics and looking at topics, but those topics are based on vast areas of study. However, as practitioners, we can use them in our meditation and as a way of opening to a bigger perspective in our meditation. So essentially in meditation, we're looking at what is the Heart Sutra pointing to? What is this phrase pointing to? And you might reference a teaching that you have studied or a text that you've read or an aspect of your meditation that you're trying to clarify. So with form is emptiness and emptiness is form, we're looking at the core belief of non-separate, unchanging, permanent self. That this vague assumption that we carry with us and base all of our behaviors on is in fact something that we've constructed over time with our very creative, restless mind. And so when the Heart Sutra points out when the Heart Sutra points out the 5 skandhas are empty, it's asking us to examine, well, how did you create this? And let's break down the components of what you created, and then let's look at each component separately and then together to see, is this a mistaken illusion or not? So first we have to reflect on essentially our starting point, the Four Noble Truths. We come to the Dharma knowing that we're suffering and we want to get out of that suffering. And the Dharma points out fairly quickly, your suffering is always in connection with a separate self. That separate self and clinging to it, that permanent self, is always there when you suffer. So if we want to undermine our suffering, we have to look at this perceived self. We know that when we get a sense of suffering, we really want to get out of it. And we have an instinctual feeling of pushing it away. And if it's in relation to others, aggressively pushing away others. So we start to get a sense that this perceived self and pain leads to behaviors, and those behaviors harm us and they harm others. So we're giving ourselves a lot of reasons to look into this perceived self. It's not only that we have a perception, is that this perception filters through all of our behaviors, and those behaviors cause even more suffering. So, for instance, if we look at what we call the afflictive emotions of anger, pride, jealousy, greed, passion, any one of them, if you were to examine any one of them, it has to do with some sort of pain in relation to a perceived self. And we feel as though, well, if I could get rid of anger, I'd be happy. If I could get rid of jealousy, I'd be happy. If I could get rid of my addictions, I would be happy. Thinking that it's the behaviors and emotions as opposed to the root cause of this perceived self experiencing pain or injury and wanting that pain or injury gone. We can also see it in the way the 8 worldly dharmas are described, of pleasure, pain, praise, blame, fame, disgrace, gain, and loss. So we can see just so easily if somebody criticizes you. Who's being criticized? It's that perceived self, and we don't like it, and we want that gone. And we have behaviors of pushing that person away, that criticizer away, or pushing those feelings away. So we begin the Heart Sutra seeing, okay, there is a connection between my pain and suffering and this teaching in the Heart Sutra that the self, which is form, perception, discrimination, feeling, and consciousness, that all of these things are connected to how I perceive myself and perceive injury. So we've been looking at, well, the body itself is emptiness, let's slow it down further, not using one word. The body itself is empty of a separate, unchanging, permanent entity. The feelings are impermanent. The perceptions are impermanent. The discrimination is impermanent. Our consciousness that does all of this recognition and judging and perceiving is impermanent. So we have this play of all of these different factors, and we overlay that play of all these factors with a sense of, this is me, and you're hurting me, and I don't want to be hurt. So we want to really break through this overlay of this restless, creative, percolating mind that's taking in all kinds of information as a permanent, unchanging self that is some way experiencing injury, or this permanent, unchanging self that is somehow reacting and responding to protect itself from injury. And rather than contemplating the form is emptiness or the emptiness is form, I want to offer a guided meditation today just to really take in how we constantly create that overlay, that naming, in my case, naming Khenmo, on this kaleidoscope-like mind that is momentary. And this is how we can use the Heart Sutra as a focus of meditation, looking at one of the points that it's pointing to, meditating on that, having an understanding of one point, and then resting in that understanding. So it's not like we're ready to understand the whole Heart Sutra and all of its implications. We're understanding partially one aspect of something that expands the more we contemplate it. So we're, for today, increasing or deepening an understanding of one point and resting in that understanding so we can take it in. If we don't take it in, by the time you've had lunch, you've forgotten it. So I'm going to invite you today really to look at how we have created millions of moments of overlay into an assumption of me and mine. So I'm going to give you some guided meditations based on different eras of your life, just as a jumping off point. So I'm hoping that the suggestion will evoke one clear memory, not many, select one, and see yourself through those eyes as if you were looking in a mirror and experiencing that particular age and saying very strongly, this is me, this is who I am, and this is what is mine. You can even simplify it to just say, this is who I am. So relaxing your body, still keeping your posture straight, taking a few deep breaths. Just perhaps closing your eyes and remembering yourself somewhere between the ages of 5 and 7. At that age, you were conscious of your family relationships, parents, siblings, or lack of them. You had a perception of home. You had started school. You had waves of playing with your friends or your siblings. You had toys and games. You had activities that you liked. Put yourself right in that age with a memory and open your eyes as that young child, looking in an imaginary mirror. And saying to yourself, this is me. What were your thoughts? What were your concerns? How did you identify me at that age? As closely as you can, become that memory. You might have a sense of your height, how your hair was cut, who was around you, where you were. Open your eyes as that young child. In that memory, are you laughing or crying? And closing that memory, let your mind settle. As much as possible, just an ordinary memory. We're not investigating trauma. You can always switch a memory if it's uncomfortable. Now move to somewhere around 12 to 14. This is the time when puberty has started. You have a different relationship or a new relationship with your body. You might have experienced social cliques or bullying, a sense of belonging or not belonging. You might have team sports or individual sports. You might have your first boyfriend or girlfriend. You might be seeing that you have a talent in some of your hobbies, uncovering gifts, arts, music, dance. You might be making a commitment to your family's religious tradition. So again, standing in front of a mirror, looking out through those eyes, saying, "This is me." When you say, "This is me," what are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What are you seeing? Closing that memory, relax. Now moving somewhere in the 18 to 25-year-old you. You're graduating from high school or not. You might be going to college. You might have started your first job. You might have lost your first love. You might have tried alcohol or drugs. You might be driving, having a sense of independence. You might be leaving home for the first time or already away from home. You might be exploring spirituality. Choose one memory from that era of your life. Open your eyes, look in the mirror, and say very strongly and confidently, "This is me." What were the concerns, the joys, the troubles, the markers of your identity that you mean when you say, "This is me"? Closing your eyes again. And we're going to take one more age range. It can be any of the years from where you are now to, let's say, 65. You probably experience strong relationships, maybe marriage or divorce. You might have had children. professional accomplishment, you might have experienced your first major illness, deaths of friends. You might be experiencing a depth of family life and a depth of spirituality. Take one strong memory and look through those eyes with a confident, this is me, this is who I am. And closing that memory, taking in your experience. Acknowledge the changing perceiver and perceived self. Our very creative minds had a momentary thought, me, and each time it was different. Although each individual moment is different, we combine them into a vague sense of one me that all of life is happening to. Notice the difference between the actual impermanence and the vague sense that creates an overlay. Take in the impermanence, the ever-changing nature of the projection, this is me, that we create hundreds of times a day without noting this is impermanent. This is a momentary creation. Now, without analyzing further, just rest in the understanding of this impermanence, this creation, this overlay. Just rest in the confidence of what you've understood today. Can air be injured with a knife? Can water be injured? Where is this solid core me that is so hurt, so often hurt?